I stare at the birthday cake, watching 45 tiny flames dance across the frosting. Each one mocks me, reminding me how many years I've wasted believing family meant something sacred. My son Jason stands behind his wife Emily, his hands on her shoulders, while she wears that plastic smile I've grown to despise. "Make a wish, Mother," Emily says, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. I close my eyes, not because I believe in wishes anymore, but because I need a moment to compose myself. The room feels smaller than it did this morning, like the walls of my own home are closing in around me. "Come on, Mom," Jason urges, and I hear that new edge in his voice, the one that appeared right after he married her. I'm Summer, and this is the last birthday I'll celebrate in my own house, though I don't know it yet. The flames blur as I lean forward. One breath, and they're gone, leaving only wisps of smoke and the lingering scent of burnt wax. The silence that follows feels heavy, loaded with unspoken accusations. "Well," Emily says, already reaching for the knife, "let's cut this, shall we?" "I can cut my own cake," I say, reaching for the knife. Our fingers brush, and she pulls back as if burned. "I'm only trying to help, Summer. You always make everything so difficult." "Do I?" I set the knife down harder than necessary. "Like when I helped with the wedding? Or when I watched Lily every weekend while you two were finding yourselves during that spiritual retreat?" Jason steps forward. "Mom, please, not today." "When then, Jason? When do I get to speak in my own home?" Emily's face hardens. "About that." She glances at Jason, who suddenly finds the floor fascinating. "We've been meaning to talk to you." The cake sits forgotten between us, its perfect white frosting starting to sag in the afternoon heat. Lily, my granddaughter, shifts uncomfortably in her chair, her phone forgotten in her lap. "We think it's time for a change," Emily continues. "This arrangement, it's not working anymore." "Arrangement?" The word tastes bitter. "This is my house. I raised Jason here after his father died. And we're grateful," Emily says, though her tone suggests anything but. "But Jason and I need our own space, to grow as a family." "We are a family." "Mom," Jason finally looks up, and I see Emily's influence in his eyes. "We found you a nice apartment. It's close to the community center, and—" "You what?" The room spins slightly. "You've been planning this? Behind my back?" "Don't be dramatic," Emily sighs. "We're trying to help you start fresh. You're still young enough to build your own life." I laugh, and it sounds strange even to my ears. My life is here, with my son, my granddaughter. "That's the problem." Emily steps closer, dropping her voice. "You can't let go. You're suffocating us with your presence." The knife gleams on the table between us. I watch my hand reach for it, not to threaten, just to hold something solid while my world crumbles. Emily flinches backward. "Jason, see? This is exactly what I've been telling you." "Mom, put the knife down." Jason's voice shakes. "You're proving her point." "I wasn't. But it doesn't matter what I wasn't going to do. The story's already written in their minds." "You have until tomorrow evening," Emily says, her voice steady now that she has the upper hand. "We'll help you pack." "Tomorrow?" The word comes out as a whisper. "You're giving me 24 hours to leave my home?" "It's for the best." Jason won't meet my eyes anymore. "We'll make sure you're settled." Lily stands suddenly, tears streaming down her face, and runs upstairs. Nobody follows her. I look at the cake, at the smoke still rising from the candles, at the knife in my trembling hand. 45 years of memories in this house, and they're giving me 24 hours to pack them away. "Happy birthday to me," I say, and carefully set the knife down. Won't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Not yet. But as I walk upstairs to start packing, I make a different kind of wish. One that has nothing to do with candles and everything to do with justice. The motel room smells like stale cigarettes and broken dreams. 3 cardboard boxes contain what's left of my life. Photo albums, legal documents, and the few precious mementos I managed to grab before Jason practically shoved me out the door. Mark sits in the threadbare armchair, watching me pace between the bed and window. You need to eat something, Summer. He pushes a takeout container toward me. I need my house back. My fingers trace the windowsill, collecting dust. You should have seen Emily's face when she called the police, like she was the victim. She called the cops? Mark straightens in his chair. When I refused to leave, said I was trespassing. A bitter laugh escapes me. In my own home, the one I paid off 15 years ago. What about the deed? In Jason's name. I transferred it last year when... I stopped pacing. When Emily suggested it would help them qualify for a better mortgage rate. God, I was so stupid. Mark's phone buzzes. He glances at it, then holds it out to me. Speaking of Emily, it's a social media post, a photo of Emily, Jason, and Lily in front of my house. The caption reads, "Fresh start for our little family. Sometimes the hardest choices are the most necessary. Hashtag blessed, family first." The phone slips from my trembling fingers onto the bed. She's already redecorating, I whisper. Lily texted me pictures. They're painting over the height marks on the kitchen doorframe. 22 years of measuring Jason, gone under a coat of Moroccan sunset, or whatever the hell Emily calls it. Summer! A knock at the door cuts him off. We freeze, exchanging glances. Another knock, more insistent. Mom? Jason's voice. I know you're in there. Mark's car is outside. Mark raises an eyebrow, asking silently if I want him to answer. I shake my head and move to the door myself, taking a deep breath before opening it. Jason stands there, holding a small box. He looks uncomfortable in his expensive button-down shirt. Emily's taste, not his. You forgot some things, he says, not quite meeting my eyes. Did I forget them, or did you prevent me from taking them? He shifts his weight. Emily we thought you might want these. He holds out the box. Inside are some old Christmas ornaments and a few framed photos. How generous of you both. The words taste like acid. Tell me, was this before or after she changed the locks? Mom, please. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Am I? Tell me, Jason, when did you start believing her lies about me? Was it before or after she convinced you to put the house in your name? His face hardens. Emily was right. You always do this. Twist everything to make yourself the victim. The victim? I step closer, forcing him to look at me. I raised you alone after your father died. I worked 2 jobs to keep that house. I was there for every scraped knee, every broken heart, every triumph and failure. And now you're throwing me away like yesterday's garbage because your wife decided I'm inconvenient? That's not... He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurts. You're suffocating us, Mom. Always hovering, always judging Emily's decisions about our family. Your family? The laugh that escapes me sounds foreign, almost hysterical. I'm your family! And Emily is my wife! He shouts back, then immediately looks around, embarrassed by his outburst. Look, we've set up an account for you. There's enough money for a few months' rent while you figure things out. I stare at him, this stranger wearing my son's face. Keep your money. And your pity. Mom! Tell Emily congratulations. I start to close the door. She finally got what she wanted. What's that supposed to mean? Ask her about Richard. The name makes him flinch. Ask her what happened to her last husband's mother. Or better yet, don't. Ignorance seems to be working so well for you. I shut the door on his confused face and lean against it, listening to his footsteps fade away. When I turn around, Mark is watching me with a mixture of concern and admiration. Richard? He asks. Emily's ex-husband. I move to the window, watching Jason's car pull away. I did some digging last night. Turns out I'm not the first mother-in-law she's displaced, just the latest in a pattern. Summer, Mark's voice carries a warning. What are you planning? I touch the window glass, cool and solid under my fingers. I'm planning to show my son exactly who he married, and this time, I'm not playing nice. The coffee shop feels too bright, too normal for the conversation we're about to have. Derek, Emily's brother, sits across from me, his fingers drumming against his cup. Mark arranged this meeting, calling in favors I didn't know he had. Emily doesn't know I'm here, Derek says, his voice barely above a whisper. If she found out, she won't. I lean forward, but I need to understand what happened with Richard. Derek's fingers stop drumming. Richard was a mistake, like the others. Others? He glances around the cafe, paranoid. Emily has a pattern. She finds men with close family ties, especially to their mothers. Strong families fascinate her because we never had one. A barista drops a cup somewhere behind us, and Derek jumps. I notice the slight tremor in his hands, the dark circles under his eyes. You're afraid of her, I realize. You don't know what she's capable of. He pulls out his phone, scrolls through photos. Richard's mother, Margaret, before Emily. He shows me a picture of a vibrant woman in her 60s, surrounded by family. And after, the next photo shows the same woman, but diminished somehow. Isolated, broken. Emily convinced Richard that Margaret was manipulating him, trying to control their marriage. Sound familiar? Derek's laugh is hollow. Within a year, Margaret was in a nursing home. Richard thought it was his idea. My coffee turns bitter in my mouth. And Richard? Lost everything in the divorce. Emily had already transferred most of their assets. Derek swallows hard. He didn't survive the winter. They called it an accident. The cafe suddenly feels airless. Are you saying? I'm not saying anything. Derek's voice sharpens. I'm just telling you what happened. What always happens. A text lights up my phone. It's from Lily. Grandma, something's wrong. Mom found your old letters to Dad. She's burning them in the backyard. My hands start shaking. Those letters, written to Jason's father before he died, were all I had left of him. Excuse me, I manage to say, standing so quickly my chair scrapes against the floor. Derek grabs my wrist. Wait, there's more you need to know. My letters. Emily's pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. I sink back into my chair. She told the family last night. Derek won't meet my eyes. She's using it to cement her position. Jason's overjoyed. She's 40, I whisper. She told Jason she couldn't have more children. That's why they never... Emily always knows what she needs to survive. Derek finally looks at me. The baby will give her total control. You'll never get Jason back now. Another text from Lily. Mom's saying weird things about you, about how you tried to poison her relationship with Dad from the beginning. She has proof. Proof? I say out loud. Derek's expression changes. Oh God, the diary. What diary? Emily keeps a diary of evidence, things she twists and manipulates. Conversations taken out of context, innocent moments reframed as threats. She's been doing it for years. My phone buzzes again. This time it's from Jason. How could you, Mom? Emily showed me everything. Don't contact us again. The cafe walls start closing in. Derek reaches across the table, his voice urgent. Listen to me. You can't fight her directly. She's already positioned you as the villain. The pregnant wife versus the jealous mother-in-law. Who do you think people will believe? Then what am I supposed to do? Watch her destroy everything I have left? No. Derek pulls out a USB drive, slides it across the table. You're supposed to be smarter than Margaret was, than Richard was, than I was. What's on it? Everything. Financial records, medical records, the truth about what happened to Richard. He stands up. But be careful. Emily has friends in strange places. If she suspects you have this, why are you helping me? Derek pauses, and for a moment, I see the weight of years of guilt in his eyes. Because someone needs to stop her, and because I'm tired of watching mothers lose their children. He walks away, leaving me with a USB drive that feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds and another text from Lily. Grandma, please. Mom's different when you're not around. I'm scared. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of every decision that led to this moment. When I open them, I know what I have to do. Emily wanted a war. Now she'll get one. The USB drive sits on Mark's kitchen table like a loaded gun. My laptop hums as it copies Richard's financial records, each file a bullet aimed at Emily's carefully constructed life. "You're crossing a line here," Mark says, pouring more wine. "Once you start this, there's no going back." I scroll through another document, my fingers trembling slightly. "Emily crossed the line when she burned those letters." "Summer? Look at this!" I turn the screen toward him. 3 months before Richard's accident, Emily transferred nearly everything into offshore accounts. The timing... A knock at the door freezes us both. Mark moves to answer it, but I grab his arm. Through the window, I catch a glimpse of Lily's face, tear-streaked and pale. "Jesus," Mark whispers, opening the door. "Lily, what happened?" She bursts in, looking over her shoulder, like she's being chased. "Mom's lost it. She's telling everyone you're mentally unstable, Grandma. That you've been stalking her, threatening her and the baby." My stomach turns. "What baby?" "She's pregnant," Lily's voice cracks. "But that's not... I found something in her study. About Richard." The USB drive feels heavy in my pocket. "What about him?" "Pictures, documents. She has this whole file about how she..." Lily stops, wrapping her arms around herself. "I think she hurt him, really hurt him, and now she's saying things about you that sound just like..." Headlights sweep across the windows. Lily freezes. "That's Dad's car," she whispers. "I didn't tell them I was coming here." Mark moves quickly, grabbing my laptop. "Back door, now." We slip into the darkness of his backyard, just as Jason's voice carries through the house. "Mark? We know they're here." Lily grabs my hand, pulling me toward the garden gate. "Mom has the police on speed dial. She's going to say you kidnapped me." "I didn't." "I know." She squeezes my hand. "But she has evidence. She always has evidence." We make it to my car, parked a block away. As I start the engine, I see Emily emerge from Jason's car, one hand protectively over her stomach. Even from here, I can see her triumphant smile. "She's going to destroy you like she destroyed Richard's mother," Lily says as we pull away. Unless what? Unless we destroy her first." Lily pulls out her phone, showing me a video. "I recorded her talking to someone named Marcus last week. About Richard's accident. About what really happened." My hands tighten on the steering wheel. "Lily, are you sure you want to?" "She's poisoning Dad against everyone who loves him, just like she did with Richard." Lily's voice hardens. "And now there's going to be another baby, another person for her to control." Police sirens wail in the distance. I take a sharp turn, heading toward the highway. "Where are we going?" Lily asks. "Somewhere safe." I glance at her. "But first, you need to understand what you're getting into. This isn't just about exposing Emily anymore. This is about survival." "I know." She clutches her phone like a weapon. "That's why I made copies. Of everything." My phone buzzes with a text from Mark. "Emily filed a restraining order. Police are looking for you both. Be careful." Another message follows, from Jason. "How could you take my daughter? Emily's having contractions from the stress. If anything happens to our baby..." I switch off the phone, feeling something cold and certain settle in my chest. Emily wanted to paint me as the villain? Fine. Sometimes the only way to fight a monster is to become one. "Grandma?" Lily's voice is small in the darkness. "What are we going to do?" I think of the USB drive in my pocket, of Richard's mysterious accident, of Emily's perfectly crafted evidence. "We're going to give your mother exactly what she expects. Sometimes the best way to spring a trap is to step right into it." The highway stretches ahead, dark and empty. Behind us, blue lights flash in the distance. But for the first time since this all began, I'm not running away. I'm running towards something. And Emily has no idea what's coming. The motel room feels like a cage. Lily sleeps fitfully on one bed while I sit at the small desk, sifting through Richard's financial records on my laptop. Each document reveals another layer of Emily's manipulation. Bank transfers, forged signatures, carefully orchestrated accidents. My phone vibrates. A text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Riverside Park, 1 a.m. Come alone. Derek." I glance at Lily, then at the clock. 12:37 a.m. The park is deserted when I arrive. Streetlights casting long shadows across empty benches. Derek emerges from behind a tree, looking more haunted than ever. Emily knows about the USB drive, he says without preamble. She's already moved the money. What money? The insurance payout from Richard's death. She's been keeping it in a hidden account, but now… He runs a hand through his hair. She's desperate, Summer. She's talking about leaving the country. With my son? With everything. The baby, Jason's inheritance, all of it. He steps closer. But that's not the worst part. A twig snaps somewhere in the darkness. Derek flinches. Marcus is back, he whispers. The man who helped her with Richard's accident. I saw them meeting yesterday. Cold fear grips my spine. You think she's planning? I think she's cornered. And cornered animals are the most dangerous. He presses something into my hand. A burner phone. If anything happens to me, everything I know is on here. The real story about Richard, about our parents, about… Headlights sweep across the park. Derek disappears into the shadows as a familiar car pulls up. Emily steps out, her pregnancy barely showing under her expensive coat. Well, she says, smiling that perfect smile. Isn't this cozy? How did you… Derek's always been predictable, she pats her stomach. Family loyalty only goes so far, doesn't it? More cars arrive. Jason emerges from one, looking confused. 2 police cruisers block the park exits. Officers, Emily calls out, her voice trembling perfectly. This is her, the woman who's been threatening me and my unborn child. That's not true. We have the evidence, Mrs. Harrison, one officer says, approaching with handcuffs. Multiple witnesses saw you following Mrs. Harrison today. We found threatening notes. What notes? Emily pulls out familiar-looking paper, the same type I used for those letters to Jason's father, the ones she burned. You're sick, Summer. You need help. Jason, I turn to my son. You can't believe this. But he's looking at the ground again, one arm around Emily's shoulders. The doctors said the stress could harm the baby, Mom. You have to stop. The baby that conveniently appeared right when you needed it? The words escape before I can stop them. Emily's face crumples in practiced anguish. How dare you? First Richard's baby, now mine. What did you say about Richard's baby? Something flashes across Emily's face, real fear quickly masked. Officers, please, I don't feel safe. As they approach with handcuffs, I make a decision. I reach for my phone, ready to send everything on that USB drive to every contact I have. Emily sees the movement. She's got a weapon! Everything happens at once. The officers lunge forward. Jason shouts. Emily smirks. And in that split second, I see it all. How perfectly she's orchestrated this moment. How completely she's turned my own son against me. But she's forgotten one thing. Mom! Lily's voice rings out across the park. She steps into the light, holding up her phone. I got it all. The whole conversation, including what you just said about Richard's baby. Emily's mask slips. For just a moment, I see the real her, the calculating predator beneath the perfect wife facade. Lily, she says, reaching out. Sweetheart, you don't understand. I understand everything. Lily's voice shakes but holds firm. And so will the police, once they see what's really on that USB drive. The one Derek gave you tonight wasn't the only copy. The park falls silent, except for the soft whir of police radios. Emily's hand drops to her stomach, but this time the gesture looks less protective and more like she's holding on to her last weapon. Jason looks between us all, lost and confused, and I realize this is it, the moment where everything either falls apart or comes together. The truth is within reach, but so is total destruction. The question is, which path leads to which? The police station's fluorescent lights make everything look sickly and unreal. I sit in the interrogation room, my wrists raw from the handcuffs, while Detective Morris reads through Emily's carefully crafted evidence. Multiple threatening messages, he says, spreading out papers. Stalking complaints, witness statements about your erratic behavior. Those are forgeries. Like the USB drive you claim to have? He raises an eyebrow. The one our tech team couldn't access? My stomach drops. I think of Derek's face in the park, his warning about Emily moving money. Of course she'd have someone ready to corrupt the files. The door opens. Emily walks in, supported by Jason. She looks perfectly fragile in her designer maternity dress. "I'll make this brief," she says, touching her stomach. "The doctors are concerned about my blood pressure." "You don't have to be here," Jason tells her, all protective concern. "I do." She dabs at her eyes with a tissue. "Summer needs to understand what she's doing to this family." Detective Morris steps out, giving us privacy. I notice he leaves the door slightly open, probably recording everything. "Drop the act," I say. "We both know you're not really pregnant." Emily's face crumples. "Jason, do you hear how she's still trying to hurt us? Even now?" "Mom, stop." Jason's voice is hard. "We have the medical records, the ultrasounds, forged like everything else about her. Like Richard's baby?" Emily's voice turns sharp. "The one you claim What exactly are you accusing me of, Summer?" The trap springs shut. I realize too late what she's done. Led me straight into making accusations that sound completely unhinged. "Tell them about Marcus," I try. "About the insurance money." "Marcus?" Emily looks confused. "Jason, isn't that the name of your mother's imaginary friend from her diary?" "What diary?" She pulls out a worn notebook. My handwriting, but words I never wrote. Pages of paranoid ramblings about conspiracies and imaginary conversations. "We found it when we were packing her things," Emily says softly. That's when we realized how sick she'd become. "That's not mine." "Mom," Jason steps forward, "we've arranged for you to get help. A facility in Vermont." "No!" I stand up so quickly my chair crashes backward. "I'm not crazy. Lily has proof. She recorded." "Lily's recording was corrupted," Emily interrupts. "Just like that mysterious USB drive. Technology can be so unreliable when you're unstable." The walls seem to close in. "Where is Lily?" "Safe," Emily says. "Away from your influence." "What did you do to her?" "She's at a boarding school in Switzerland," Jason says, "where you can't reach her." My legs give out. I sink to the floor, understanding finally hitting me. Emily hasn't just taken my son and my home. She's taken my granddaughter, my evidence, my credibility, everything. "The facility has an excellent success rate," Emily continues, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Once you're better, maybe we can discuss supervised visits. With the baby." She takes Jason's hand, placing it on her stomach. The gesture is so perfectly calculated, it makes me sick. "You won't get away with this," I whisper. Emily leans down, her mask slipping for just a moment. "I already have. Richard tried to expose me too, right before his accident. And Derek, well, accidents happen all the time." "What did you say about Derek?" She straightens up, mask back in place. "Oh dear, she's getting agitated. Jason, perhaps we should—" "I'll call the doctor," he says, reaching for his phone. "No, wait!" But the serum already leaving. "Gee!" Emily's theatrical sniffles echoing down the hall. Detective Morris returns with a psychiatrist. They speak in low voices about involuntary commitment, about my paranoid delusions. My phone sits on the table, dead and useless. The USB drive is corrupted. Lily is gone. Derek is... I don't want to think about what Emily's words implied about Derek. Through the window, I watch Emily and Jason walk to their car. She turns back, just for a moment, and smiles. That same smile she wore when she burned my letters, when she took my home, when she stole my son. The psychiatrist approaches with admission papers, and I realize with cold clarity that this isn't rock bottom. This is just the beginning of how far Emily plans to make me fall. The psychiatric facility's garden is beautiful, but it's still a cage. 3 weeks of medication and therapy have left me foggy, compliant. Exactly what Emily wanted. I watch other patients shuffle through their daily routines, wondering if they too were put here by someone else's lies. Then Mark appears on my scheduled visiting day, and everything changes. "Derek's alive," he says without preamble. He's in intensive care, but he's talking. The fog in my mind clears instantly. What happened? Car accident that wasn't an accident. He recorded everything before Emily's guy ran him off the road, including her confession about Richard's death. My hands shake as I process this. The USB drive was a decoy. The real evidence is with Richard's sister in Boston. She's been building a case against Emily for years. A nurse watches us suspiciously from across the garden. I lower my voice. Why are you telling me this now? Because Emily's planning to leave the country tonight. Private jet to Switzerland, where Lily is. Mark's eyes meet mine. She's taking Jason and the insurance money. All of it. She can't. She can. Unless what? Mark slips me a phone and a key card. Unless you stop playing by her rules. The next hours blur together. A fire alarm. Confusion in the halls. Somehow, I'm in Mark's car, racing toward the private airfield where Emily's escape plan is already in motion. We arrive to see Emily directing movers loading a private jet. Jason helps, looking lost and tired. There's no sign of her pregnancy bump anymore. No need to maintain that lie when she's about to disappear. Hello, Emily. She spins around, her perfect mask slipping for just a moment. How did you— Jason, call security! Before you do that, I hold up my phone. You might want to hear what your brother has to say. Derek's recorded voice fills the air. Emily arranged everything. Richard's accident, the insurance fraud, all of it. She's done this before, and she'll do it again. Lies! Emily snaps. But Jason has stopped moving, really listening for the first time. The baby was a lie too, I continue. Just like it was with Richard. Just like everything about you is a lie. Jason! Emily's voice turns sugary. Your mother is clearly having another episode. We should— Should what? I step closer. Have me committed? Stage another accident? How many people have you destroyed, Emily? I don't know what you're talking about, but her eyes dart toward the jet. Richard's sister sends her regards. She's very interested in reopening the investigation into her brother's death. Emily's mask cracks completely. You stupid woman! You have no idea what you're doing. Jason, get in the plane. Jason, I say quietly. Check her phone. Look for messages from Marcus about Derek's accident. Don't you dare! Emily lunges for Jason, but he's already got her phone, reading with growing horror. Mom? His voice sounds young suddenly. What is all this? Oh, for God's sake! Emily snarls, dropping all pretense. Fine. You want the truth? Richard was weak. His mother was interfering. Just like your precious mommy here. Sometimes people need to be removed. Like Derek? Jason's face has gone pale. Derek should have kept his mouth shut. Just like you should have trusted me instead of digging into things that don't concern you. Police sirens wail in the distance. Emily's face contorts with rage. She reaches into her purse, and everything explodes into motion. A gun appears in her hand. Jason shouts. I move without thinking, decades of maternal instinct driving me forward. The gunshot cracks across the airfield. Pain blooms in my shoulder, but I'm still moving. Emily's gun clatters away as we grapple. All the rage, all the pain of the past months pours out as we fight. I won't let you hurt anyone else, I gasp. Emily laughs, high and broken. You still don't get it, do you? I always win. Always. Not this time. Police flood the airfield. Jason is shouting something. Emily tries to twist away, to reach for her fallen gun, but I hold on. Even as my vision blurs from blood loss, I hold on. Because this isn't about winning anymore. It's about stopping the cycle, protecting what's left of my family. Even if it costs me everything. The last thing I see before consciousness fades is Jason's face, tears streaming down his cheeks as he finally sees the truth. The hospital room is quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. My shoulder throbs, but it's nothing compared to the weight of the manila envelope in my lap. Inside are Emily's full confessions, extracted during hours of police interrogation. Every manipulation, every crime, every carefully orchestrated tragedy. Jason sits in the visitor's chair, looking at his hands. We haven't spoken since the airfield, since he watched his wife try to kill his mother. The silence between us feels like another wound that won't heal. Lily's flight lands tonight, he finally says. Mark's picking her up from the airport. I nod, unable to find words that don't taste like ashes. Did you know? His voice cracks. When you gave Emily the house deed last year, did you know she was planning this? I knew something wasn't right. The envelope crinkles under my fingers. But I wanted you to be happy, to have the family you deserved. The family I deserved. He laughs, hollow and broken. I helped her destroy everything. I believed her lies about you, about Derek, about... He stops, swallowing hard. I can't fix this, can I? Before I can answer, Derek appears in the doorway, leaning heavily on a cane. His injuries from the accident are still visible, but his eyes are clear. They're moving Emily to maximum security, he says. She tried to bribe a guard. Jason flinches at his wife's name. I watch him struggle with the weight of everything he's learned. How Emily used him to access Richard's insurance money. How she manipulated him into turning against me. How every moment of their marriage was built on calculated lies. The house is yours again. Jason stands abruptly. I've already signed the papers. And Mom. He reaches for words that won't come. I know, I say, but I don't know what I know anymore. The victory feels empty, tainted by the cost. Derek clears his throat. Richard's sister wanted you to have this. He hands me a small box. Inside is a simple silver locket, the one from the photo of Richard's mother before Emily destroyed her life. She said you'd understand, Derek adds quietly. I do understand. The locket represents everything Emily tried to break, the bonds between mothers and children, the trust that holds families together. But as I hold it, I realize something else. I've become what I fought against. In my quest for revenge, I wielded the same weapons Emily used: manipulation, secrets, calculated strikes at the heart. I should go, Jason says. Lily will need... Someone should be there when she gets home. Home. The word echoes strangely. Jason! I call as he reaches the door. The height marks on the kitchen door frame. He turns back, confusion crossing his face. Emily painted over them, but they're still there, under the surface. I touch the locket. Some things can't be erased, no matter how hard someone tries. Understanding dawns in his eyes. He nods once, sharply, and disappears down the hall. Derek settles into the vacant chair. Emily asked to see you. No. She says she has more secrets to share. About Jason, about... I don't care. I close the locket with a snap. Her secrets can die with her. He studies me for a long moment. You won, Summer. She's going to prison. The truth is out. Why doesn't it feel like enough? Through the window, I watch Jason cross the parking lot, shoulders bent under invisible weight. In my hand, the locket feels both lighter and heavier than it should. Because there are no winners here, I say. Only survivors. The monitor keeps beeping, marking time in a world that feels permanently altered. Somewhere, Emily sits in a cell, probably already planning her next move. Lily's plane crosses the ocean, bringing her back to a home that's both familiar and forever changed. And I sit here, holding a dead woman's locket, wondering if revenge and justice were ever really the same thing. The truth didn't set anyone free. It just gave us different chains to carry.
Stop doing this. Huh? You have no right to say that. The husband boldly entered my home office, disrupting the space whether I was working or not. Why does it turn out like this? Are you serious right now? The husband's face was stern. Even as I worked from home, he criticized me as if I were merely playing around. And he wasn't the only one. It's useless talking to a woman like that. Ah. That's right. I didn't realize we had such a useless woman here. Even bugs are more useful, aren't they? Mom, that's disrespectful to the bugs. Sorry, I just couldn't hold back. Enduring such days became routine. My opinions were ignored, and my daily frustrations were freely vented upon me. Then, one day, as usual, I was in an important meeting at home when suddenly my husband entered the room. However, I did not notice him as I was wearing headphones. Brace yourself. You're unnecessary in this house, just a parasite. I'm in a meeting right now. The mother-in-law who entered later also began to scold. I was turning back to my computer to turn off the camera when the colleagues in the meeting screamed, "Run." I turned around in shock. My husband held a bucket over his head and then dumped its contents on me. At that moment, everything felt like it was in slow motion. I felt an intense heat envelop my entire body. Ah! The contents of the bucket were boiling water. Need to disinfect you more. That's still not enough. Realizing the danger, I tried to head to the bathroom. However, my husband grabbed my arm, preventing me from escaping. Where do you think you're going? He pulled me by the arm, dragging me out of the room and into the living room, where the mother-in-law poured more boiling water on me. How about that? Did it disinfect a bit? I wonder. It's quite a big bug after all. Someone like you, a NET, should get out of this house. My fists clenched, I stood up. Perhaps filled with anger, I no longer felt the heat from the boiling water. Of course, that's my plan. I said that to the two of them. Someone like you, a trash, wouldn't survive out there. At that point, I smirked. What are you laughing at? She must have gone crazy. I then revealed my true self to them. You're saying you're the CEO of a company with a revenue of 20 million per year. Don't be absurd. I knew it, she's lost her mind. You don't have to believe me, but you're the ones who will regret it. For such a day, I had made various preparations. I went to my workroom and returned with the divorce papers. Here. The divorce papers. Is this okay? Are you serious? You were the ones who said it first. Ignoring the howling of the two, I left the house. A month later, my husband and mother-in-law came to visit me. This too was part of my plan. I am Courtney Williams, working at a company I started with friends during university. I studied economics in university. But we decided to do something fun and launched an e-commerce site. We handled various products, nearly identical to some major companies. To avoid being overshadowed, we decided to promote a unique concept. What's up, Sarah? Sarah was one of the original members. I've got an idea. What if we focus on products that seem like they wouldn't sell? Huh? Since it's a unique opportunity, let's go for it. I've already got approval from the other members. Looking at the product lineup Sarah suggested, they indeed seemed unlikely to sell. However, they were interesting due to their designs and low prices, and I felt they might just work. That actually might be interesting. Right? Shall we try it? At that time, we were doing this as a play until graduation. Therefore, some members had already secured jobs elsewhere. However, our e-commerce site gradually began to get noticed online. And before we knew it, it was generating significant profit. Especially since I had no job lined up, I decided to continue managing it. By the way, what will you do, Sarah? I'll help you, Courtney. I don't have anything else I want to do. Then let's work hard together. There's something else I want to ask you. I was surprised by her request. No way, I can't do that. Maybe you would be better? Everyone else thinks it's a good idea too. You've decided this without me again. Sorry. So, what do you think? I hesitated, but it was flattering that everyone was relying on me. All right. But in return, I'll need you to work harder than ever as my right-hand woman. My parents gave their permission without any objections. when I told them I would continue as the CEO without seeking employment. Profits continued to rise steadily, and by the time I was 27, the company went public. It was around this time that I met Michael. The chance encounter occurred at a favorite general store. Michael was the owner, a position that had been in his family for generations. It's really cute. Thank you for always coming. Please take your time and look around. Sure. The cozy atmosphere of the shop and its assortment of products, not only from USA but also from abroad, were highly rated by me. I continued to visit regularly. As I visited frequently, we started to have various conversations. Originally, Michael seemed to have been a salaryman. However, his father's death put the survival of the shop in jeopardy. Weren't you anxious? Of course I was anxious. But I grew up here. My mom has a bad back, and I was the only one left. I see. That said, the sales are tough. Then Michael shared a startling topic. Besides, it's a boring story, but when I took over the shop, a person I thought was a friend almost tricked me. Really?
Yeah.
He was a real estate company president. If I had gone along with his plan, he would have taken the shop too. Despite his laughter, I could feel he had gone through considerable hardships. Because of that, I feel a dislike whenever I hear the title of president. Courtney thought, I'm a president too, but maybe it's better not to say that. By the way, what kind of work do you do, Courtney? I guess I'm an engineer? Wow, that's impressive. It wasn't completely a lie. In fact, when we were setting up the site, I had helped out friends and had some knowledge. There was no turning back now. I continued visiting the shop and bought various products to help out a little. About 6 months after I started visiting the shop, as usual, I went to the shop and Michael invited me out to play. Given all the conversations we had had, our relationship was good. I couldn't immediately agree to go. It wasn't that I disliked the idea. I understood that Michael was serious and cared for his mother. Is it no good? Seeing his slightly lonely face, I agreed to go. I wasn't sure why I acted that way at the time. After several dates, Michael confessed his feelings to me. It was then that I truly realized that I liked Michael. 6 months later, he proposed, and we headed to meet for a marriage introduction. I'm still nervous, though. It's okay. My mom is kind too. I hope she accepts me properly. While we were talking about this, we arrived at his family home. Welcome. You must be Courtney, the one Michael has been talking about. Yes, that's me. The conversation progressed pleasantly from there. So, Courtney, what do you think about living together? Living together? I don't particularly dislike the idea. Courtney thought, maybe that's something that could happen eventually. Good. I'm glad. The broad smile on the mother-in-law's face at that moment remained in my mind for a while. I didn't understand it at all, the devilish side hidden behind her smile. It was just 1 week after we registered our marriage. By the way, what about the house we're going to live in? That's already decided. Huh? I hadn't heard anything about it. I didn't remember having such a conversation before. Let's go for now. Wait a minute. Where Michael had taken me was to the in-laws' house I had just visited recently. Could it be here? From today, we'll be living here. Remember, my mom mentioned it last time? I couldn't believe how foolish I had been. The question from the mother-in-law wasn't about eventually. It was about now. I couldn't just say no at this point. I had to bury deep inside the desire to enjoy a newlywed life just between the two of us. I optimistically thought it would be okay, since the mother-in-law seemed kind the one time we had spoken. I look forward to living with you from today. Likewise, please treat me well. Just one thing to remember. Don't forget that you are now a daughter-in-law in this house. Yes. The next day, the moving truck arrived, and I was allowed to use an empty room as my office. The change started to manifest about a week later. Courtney, do you remember what I told you? That you have become a daughter-in-law in this house. I remember that. Starting today, you'll start working. Then the mother-in-law handed me a broom and dustpan. I'm sorry. I have work right now. Huh? This is more important than that. I was suddenly scolded. Moreover, she kept watching me until I started cleaning. Michael was at the shop and not at home. I had no choice but to follow the mother-in-law's instructions. Have you never cleaned before, Courtney? I have. Then move more briskly. It was as if she had become a completely different person, ordering me around. And this was just the beginning, she would soon start asking for money. The mother-in-law had been a housewife and was not currently working. Remember, this is also part of a wife's duties. Courtney thought, that's not true at all. But I couldn't say that outright. I understood that much. After that, she did whatever she wanted. While I was out, she would eat the food from the fridge. And even order expensive seafood for delivery, making me pay for it. Of course, I couldn't eat any of it. I need to talk to you about something. Sure. Tell me anything. It's about your mother. I could instantly see Michael's face cloud over. What about Mom? How should I put this? She's been quite harsh towards me. I tried to put it as mildly as possible. I see. What exactly has she been doing? I explained everything that had happened so far. As I spoke, he nodded along, so I hoped he would finally take notice and say something. However, that night, it happened during a meal with the three of us. Courtney, you went and tattled to Michael, didn't you? I looked at Michael. He didn't seem to care at all about what I said and continued eating. You really shouldn't meddle. That was. I silently pleaded with Michael to say something. Michael put down his chopsticks and sighed quietly. It seems there's a misunderstanding. So I'll clarify, dealing with my parents is also part of a wife's duties. It was the opposite of what I had hoped he would say. Michael is right. You should just work for us. We don't need your opinions. That's a bit too much. Respecting your parents is basic. If you can't even manage that, what are you good for? It was clear that they were not understanding me at all. I hadn't married this man for this kind of life. After that, Michael finished his meal and returned to his room. Left alone with the mother-in-law, I had no way to fight back. If this happens again, you'll skip meals. I chose not to respond. But that only seemed to fuel her more. Are you listening? Looking down, she splashed water on me. When I raised my head, the mother-in-law was just smirking. I stood up to return to my office, but she stopped me. There's still cleaning up to do, right? That's your job. Biting my lip, I returned and began clearing the dishes. We're not monsters. As long as you do what you're told, that's enough. Courtney thought, what are you talking about? You're practically a monster already. Do you have something you want to say? No, nothing. After finishing the chores, I headed to my office. It was the only place in the house where I could be alone and undisturbed. I needed to think about what to do next. I couldn't continue being used like this in this house. I thought about consulting my parents. But the memory of their happy faces when I told them I was getting married came back to me. Courtney thought, I can't upset them. It had been only 6 months since the marriage. If I just did what was asked, there wouldn't be any complaints. I had to gather my resolve. I could bring up divorce when the time was right. That was my plan. You seem motivated today. It seems I had misunderstood before. From now on, I'll work hard for this household. That's the right attitude. When I nearly perfected the household chores, strangely enough, the usually complaining mother-in-law began treating me kindly. Eventually, we even started going out together. Courtney thought, maybe I should have been doing this from the start. From then on, I could live peacefully, except for Michael. Michael seemed displeased that I was getting along with his mother. I hadn't realized it before, but Michael was quite a mama's boy. That's when Michael decided to separate me from his mother. Sorry, but I need you to mind the store starting tomorrow. Mind the store? But I work from home too. It's not like it's a big deal. Besides, you can bring your computer with you, right? What will you be doing in the meantime? Huh? Isn't that obvious? I'm taking a day off. I couldn't help but sigh. You'll do it, right? Honestly, I liked the shop itself. Thinking positively, if I could work in that atmosphere, it might be okay. Okay, but I can't do it every day. All right. Since Thursday is the close day, I'll need you from Monday to Wednesday. I agreed to that and started tending the shop. However, customers hardly ever came. There were days when not a single person would visit from morning till evening. So, I decided to try listing our products on an online shop and promoted it using social media. Gradually, our sales began to increase. It looks like sales have been going up recently. That's right. It must be because of my good taste, huh? Maybe so. Most of the products in the store were selected by Michael. I acknowledge that much. However, products don't sell just because they're stocked. In reality, it's fair to say it improved because of my efforts. I deliberately hid that fact, thinking it wouldn't be recognized anyway. Then, a misunderstanding Michael began to go even further off the rails. Hey, what's with that? Oh, this? I've wanted it for a while so I bought it. Cool, right? Michael had bought a luxury car without consulting anyone. Without consulting anyone? While we were arguing, the mother-in-law returned from shopping. What are you two doing? Michael bought a car on his own, using almost all of our earnings. At that time, my relationship with the mother-in-law was good, so she took my side smoothly. What are you doing? We don't need something like this. Michael ended up being lectured by his mother. Apparently, he couldn't stand up to her and could only make excuses. Don't nag. Hiding it would only delay the inevitable. It would come out sooner or later. Damn it. To be honest, including my income, we weren't short on money. But continuing this way would surely ruin us. I wanted to avoid affecting not only Michael but also the mother-in-law. So, I thought if there was no money available, that would solve it. I reduced the stock in the online shop, and the plan succeeded. Since I was also in charge of managing the sales data, Michael only knew the sales figures I reported. So, how are the sales this month? It seemed Michael hadn't learned his lesson yet. They're about this much for this month. That little? Isn't that a bit low? That's the challenging part of business, isn't it? Well, I suppose. Months went by as I adjusted the reported earnings. Then one night, Michael made a shocking accusation. You've been fudging the store's sales, haven't you? What? I'm not doing anything like that. It's strange that sales would suddenly drop every month. Are you embezzling? Do you have any proof? It started when you began managing the shop. That's when sales started falling. That doesn't mean I'm skimming money, does it? Are you arguing again? She's been fiddling with the sales and putting it in her own pocket. Courtney. I haven't done anything like that. The argument continued with neither side backing down. The day ended with the mother-in-law's intervention. But 2 days later, the situation took an unexpected turn. It turns out you were taking the shop's money after all. This topic again? I told you I didn't do it. Then what is this? Michael was holding an envelope. It appeared to contain several $1,000s. This was found in your office. You were hiding it, but too bad, now everyone knows, right? Mom? With this much evidence, it seems we have to accept it as true. Wait, please. I didn't do anything. Believe me. Stop embarrassing yourself. Just admit your guilt. Courtney thought, I've been framed. I hadn't expected him to stoop to this. Looking at the mother-in-law, she seemed completely convinced by Michael. It's a shame. I thought we had finally become close. Mother-in-law. I really didn't. Enough already. At that moment, I felt everything we had built up crumbling down. A hellish time was starting again. Forbidden from going to the shop, I was as if confined at home, forced to take care of the household. Not only was I expected to handle all the housework, but I was also increasingly being woken up in the middle of the night to run errands to the convenience store. Hey! What's with this awful meal? Are you joking? Normally, the mother-in-law would intervene in such situations, but now she ignored it all. Don't be too harsh on her. But she needs to understand her place, right? Courtney. Yes. Then the mother-in-law threw the meal I had prepared into the nearby trash can. What are you doing? It tasted bad. So, make it again. Right now? Of course. What you did was like stealing. This punishment is nothing compared to that. Maybe we should eat out instead of risking another bad meal? That sounds good. So that's settled. Finish up here. The two of them left to eat out, leaving me alone at home. I realized that living with these people was impossible. I quickly finished cleaning up and secluded myself in my room. I had contributed to the shop's sales, so I decided to shut down the online shop. This would surely impact them later. In reality, the sales were virtually non-existent even before I started managing the shop. By the time they realized this, I would no longer be in this house. I also cleverly used my shopping trips to obtain a divorce form, planning to present it at the best moment. It happened while I was working as usual. Michael barged into the room, rummaging through shelves and drawers, suspecting I was hiding money somewhere. Stop this already. Huh? You have no right to say that. Why does it have to be like this? Are you serious? Michael's face was earnest. Perhaps because it was his own lie, he couldn't back down halfway. Even though I was working from home, he accused me of just playing around. And it wasn't just Michael. It's useless talking to a woman like that.
Yeah.
That's right. To think we have such a useless woman here. Even bugs are more useful, aren't they? Mom, that's an insult to bugs. Sorry, I just couldn't hold back. Enduring such days was my daily life. Even if I voiced my opinions, they were ignored, and they freely vented their frustrations on me. Then, one day, as I was conducting an important meeting at home, Michael suddenly entered the room. However, I didn't notice him because I was wearing headphones. Brace yourself. Someone like you isn't needed in this house. Just a parasite. I'm in a meeting right now. The mother-in-law who entered later also started berating me. I was about to turn off the camera to face my computer when the colleagues in the meeting yelled, "Run." Startled, I turned around. Michael was holding a bucket overhead, then suddenly threw its contents at me. In that moment, everything seemed to move in slow motion. Then, my whole body felt as if it were on fire.
Ah.
The bucket was filled with boiling water. Need to disinfect some more. That's still not enough. Realizing the danger, I tried to escape to the bathroom. However, my husband grabbed my arm and I couldn't get away. "Where do you think you're going?" He pulled me by the arm, dragging me out of the room and into the living room, where the mother-in-law then poured more boiling water on me. How about that? Did it disinfect a bit? I wonder. It's quite a big bug after all. Someone like you, a NET, should just leave this house. I clenched my fists and stood up. Perhaps filled with anger, I didn't even feel the heat from the boiling water. Of course, that's my intention. I told them both off. Someone like you, a trash, won't be able to survive out there. At that point, I smirked. What are you laughing at? She must have gone crazy. I then revealed my true self to them. You're saying you're the CEO of a company with a revenue of 20 million per year. Don't make me laugh. She must have lost her mind. You don't have to believe me, but you're the ones who will regret it. For such a day, I had made various preparations. I went to my office room and returned with the divorce papers. Here. The divorce papers. Is this okay? Are you serious? You were the ones who said it first. Ignoring the howling of the two, I left the house. My destination was my parents' home. I paused at the doorstep, reluctant to enter in such a manner. Then, I heard a voice from behind. Turning around, there stood my mother. "Kanami? What's wrong?" "Mom." Sensing something was amiss from my demeanor, my mother kindly ushered me inside. "How is it? Tasty, right?" "Yes. Your coffee is always the best." "So, what brings you here at this hour?" "Well, I explained everything that had happened to my mother. Normally gentle, she was furious this time. "What is that?" "That's unbelievable. But I've made various preparations for this." "Really?"
Yeah.
We waited for my father to come home. And I recounted everything that had happened to him as well. My father wanted to confront them immediately, but I stopped him. "Why stop me? My precious daughter has been treated so terribly. Calm down a bit. They'll come looking for us eventually." "What do you mean?" "Just wait and see. It'll be worth it." That night, I received a call from Sarah. "Are you okay? It was chaos after you left." "Sorry, things got even more complicated afterward." "Are you okay now?" "For now, yes. I've come back to my parents' house." "About today." "I'm sorry. It was during an important meeting." At this point, I remembered something crucial. "Sarah. We always record the meetings for documentation, right?" "Yes, like always today." "Oh. Are you thinking what I think you are? Did you catch on?" "Yes. Can you send that to me later?" "Okay." Unexpectedly, I had obtained the strongest evidence. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in a long while. A month later, Michael and his mother came looking for me. "Please help us. I've been waiting for this." "What? You're out of money and in trouble, aren't you? You're the CEO, right?" "We're still married." We'll have to give up the shop if things continue like this. That's none of my concern. About that divorce paper you gave me. Oh, did you bring it with you? Michael pulled a folded divorce paper from his pocket. Can you hand it over quickly? This means nothing. Saying so, he tore it up. Courtney thought, that's meaningless to you only. See? Just give up and come back. Let's live together again. Talk in your sleep, why don't you? I had one more card up my sleeve to drop them further into despair. Just come back without any fuss. That's impossible. You'll understand once you see this. I showed them the video of the meeting, which clearly captured them pouring boiling water on me. You see now? When did you even? You'll never understand, will you? What? This is solid evidence of domestic violence. And I was about to go to the police. Shall we go together? Michael? What do we do? Wait a moment. I'm thinking. They seemed on the verge of arguing among themselves when my father came out. Courtney. Dad. I thought I'd say a word. I need to pay back for how they treated my daughter. Seeing my father, Michael and his mother were visibly shaken. Perhaps we should just give up. I can't back down here. You should listen to your mother. Now, what shall we do with these two? Father was more than ready to take action. It's a hassle, maybe I should just call the police. I pulled out my phone. Seeing this, the two of them fled the scene, though there was really nowhere for them to run. Stupid, running as if there's somewhere to go. There was still more to come. If you had stepped in, Dad, we would have needed the police for a different reason. My father and I shared a laugh. Now, it was time to finish this. First, I went to the police with the evidence. They began an investigation based on the video. Furthermore, I headed to a law firm to proceed with the divorce. Sarah, thanks for last time. You really helped me out. I just did what needed to be done. Courtney is not only a precious friend but also the president of our company. Is that latter the real reason? Who knows? Afterward, my divorce with Michael was finalized. While he wasn't arrested for domestic violence, he faced a fine. Moreover, considering everything since our marriage, I decided to claim alimony. For Michael, being brought down by his beloved money seemed most fitting. Then, I went to a certain place. Long time no see. Courtney. What are you doing here? You put this shop up for sale, right? Because you couldn't pay the alimony and had debts, huh? Where did you hear that? I had a lawyer investigate Michael. It turned out he had been borrowing regularly to cover living expenses. Moreover, his mother apparently did not know about this. This shop isn't yours anymore. What do you mean? Forgot who I really am? No way, it's you. Exactly. From today, this shop is mine. I'll make good use of it, so why don't you hurry back to your mom? You. She'll probably comfort you, right? Leaving a crumbling Michael behind, I left the scene. After that, I renovated the shop I had purchased, breathing new life into it as a new business. Of course, the sales are doing well. We're still growing and will continue to do so. Oh? Is that you, Mandy? The moment I heard that voice, memories of my hellish married life surged back. And I turned around with goosebumps. Standing there was my smirking ex-husband, with a young woman clinging to his arm. The very person who made my first marriage a living hell is now standing right in front of me. Who would have thought we'd meet here? It's been a while, hasn't it? Huh? The ex-wife? Nice to meet you. The young woman next to him greeted me in a high-pitched voice. My ex-husband had his arm around her. You see, this is my current wife. Young and cute, huh? You are nothing compared to her. As I tried to leave, he stopped me and looked me over. Look at you, an old, unemployed, and poor single woman. You're living a miserable life because you couldn't serve me properly. Serves you right. Hey, that's a bit much. But it's true though. I was seething inside. I had to say something. Turning back to them, I asked quietly. Hey, who exactly are you talking about? My name is Mandy Thompson. I've been married to Ben for 2 years. In fact, I was married once before I met my current husband. That marriage was so tragic that I don't even want to remember it. The man I first married was named Steve Owen. We met at a small company where I started working as a fresh graduate. Steve, who was in charge of training me, seemed manly and dependable. Having had little experience in love, I was thrilled when he asked me out. And I quickly agreed to date him. However, Steve had always been somewhat tyrannical. He would get moody when I talked to other male employees. Or would behave arrogantly towards restaurant staff. But love was blind. After 2 years of dating, he proposed, and I agreed to marry him. Steve strongly wished that I become a housewife, so I did just that upon our marriage. Once married, I realized that his manly character was just domineering. Now that you're a housewife, do the household chores perfectly. That's your job. He never helped with the housework. No matter how hard I tried, he never appreciated my efforts. Instead, he was always nitpicking how I managed the household chores and finances. Still, I kept doing my best, grateful to be allowed to stay home. 3 months into our marriage, during winter, I came down with a severe cold. Feeling ill since morning, I checked my temperature, over 100 degrees. Chills and dizziness made it impossible to do any housework. When Steve returned from work and saw me wrapped in a blanket, he visibly grimaced. Hi, Mandy. What are you doing lying down? Steve. I think I caught a cold. My temperature is over 100 degrees. Despite my explanation, he frantically looked around the house and scowled. Hey. You haven't done the cleaning or the laundry. I've been feeling ill since the morning, I really couldn't do it. Don't spout such lazy excuses, you're just a housewife. He shouted and then yanked away my blanket. You haven't even prepared my dinner. Make it now. But I told you, I have a high fever. I can't possibly cook. Tears filled my eyes as I pleaded. But Steve didn't care and forced me to get up, then shoved a $10 bill at me. Then, go buy something with this now. What? Don't buy anything for yourself. You skip dinner as a punishment for slacking off. Just buy mine, now. Steve dragged me to the entrance while I was staggering and then threw me out of the house. In the freezing cold, in my pajamas outside. It seemed I wouldn't be let back in until I brought something back. After managing to buy groceries, I collapsed right at the entrance upon returning. Steve glanced at me briefly, snatched the ready-made food by his side, and began eating silently while watching TV. As I lay collapsed in the cold entrance, I heard Steve's laughter from afar, and a tear rolled down my cheek. Yet, I hadn't considered divorce because I didn't want to betray my father, who had been delighted by my marriage. My mother passed away from illness when I was in middle school, and since then, it had always been just my father and me. My father was running a stationery shop and we weren't wealthy. But I had a happy life with my kind father who loved me deeply. When I got married, he said with tears, now I can finally rest easy. Be happy. If I divorced within just 6 months of marriage, it would betray my kind father. I thought I just needed to endure it for myself. Steve's domineering behavior continued. I managed to endure it, exhausting myself through the days of our marriage. About a year into our marriage, bad news arrived. My father was hospitalized with advanced cancer. Dad. I had no idea things had gotten this bad. My father had lost a lot of weight during the short time I hadn't seen him.
Yeah.
I realized too late. They say there's nothing they can do now. As he spoke quietly, I cried. My father gently wiped away my tears and asked, "Mandy, are you happy in your marriage?" I lied instinctively. I didn't want to make him worried about me on his sickbed.
Yeah.
I'm happy. Steve has been very good to me. Is that so? Well, that's good then. Looking back, maybe my father sensed something then. However, he said nothing more. With the added need to care for my father, life became even harder. Until then, I had spent all my time during the day managing the detailed housework that Steve demanded. But with the nursing of my father, that became difficult. Amidst this life, I asked Steve. "Steve, I have a favor to ask. Could you please visit my father in the hospital?" "Huh? Why should I?" Steve grimaced as he looked at me. "Well, you are his son-in-law after all. I'm sure my father would be happy to see your face." "What are you talking about?" "I don't want to see the face of a dying old man." I stared at Steve in disbelief as he continued, oblivious to my shock. "More importantly, don't slack on the housework because you're nursing the old man. Think well about what to prioritize." With that, he left grumpily for the bathroom. Later, as my father's condition worsened and I spent more time in the hospital, Steve, far from supporting me, berated me daily for not doing the housework. On the day of my father's surgery, when I told him I would be away all day, Steve exploded. "Hey, don't mess around. What do you think a wife's job is?" "But it's my father's surgery day." "So? What about my meal? The cleaning? The laundry? Can't you manage for one day?" As I mustered the courage to say this, Steve sighed dramatically and pulled something out of his bag. It was a signed divorce form. A divorce form. "Yes, that's right. I'm supporting you, but if you can't even manage the housework, it's a divorce." "But, it's about my father. I'm the only family he has. I don't care. If you're saying you won't do the housework because you're accompanying him to surgery, then it's an immediate divorce. Just think well." Steve left these words behind and went off to work. I was stunned, staring at the divorce form on the table. But I had no choice but to accompany my father to surgery. After the surgery, as my father woke up, I was crying by his bedside. "Dad, are you awake?" As I hurriedly wiped my tears, my father spoke quietly to me. "You're really struggling with your married life, aren't you?" "It's okay, I kind of knew." "Dad. I'm sorry. I might get a divorce. Even though you were so happy about my marriage, I'm really sorry." I sobbed like a little child and told him everything. My father listened, nodding, and then he said, "Mandy, there's something I've never told you before." Actually, I was stunned by the shocking content of his words. When I returned home, Steve was waiting, looking furious. "Hey. You skipped housework to go to the hospital, didn't you?" "Yes." "Then it's a divorce. Hurry up and sign the divorce form." Steve forced me to sit at the dining table and to write the divorce form. I quietly asked him, "Are you really going to abandon me?" Me, who is stressed out from taking care of my father. Yes, that's right. I don't care if the old man dies and you're left all alone. I'll gladly get rid of a defective wife like you. I silently signed the divorce form and left the house on that day. As I stood at the entrance with my belongings, Steve said dismissively, "Goodbye. Never show your face here again, damn wife." Soon after, I returned to my family home to continue caring for my father. However, 3 months later, my father passed away. After the funeral, when things had settled down a bit, a lawyer came to visit me. "I've come regarding your father's estate." I remembered what my father had said on the day of the surgery. "Mandy, I've been hiding this. But I've been trading stocks and cryptocurrencies for about 10 years. "What? Dad, why are you bringing this up now? With that, there's a substantial amount of money. When I pass away, it will all be yours. So don't worry about living after the divorce. Go ahead and leave him and live your life. Dad, all I want is for you to be happy. Please, don't make the wrong choice." Knowing this allowed me to decide to get a divorce. However, when I heard the amount of the inheritance from the lawyer, I was floored. Excluding taxes, I would have $3 million left. There were also several properties. My father, who had run a small stationery shop, had a talent for making money. I followed the lawyer's instructions and gratefully accepted the inheritance from my father. Later, when I had trouble with property management, I met my current husband, Ben. Born into a family of landlords, he easily solved my problems. Later, Ben proposed a relationship with marriage in mind, and I decided to remarry. Attracted by his competence and kind nature, I now have a happy life. I hope to continue living a peaceful life with the person I love. But just when I thought that, I ended up having a nightmare reunion at a real estate office I was visiting for business. I encountered my ex-husband, Steve. "Oh? Is that you, Mandy?" The moment I heard that voice, memories of my hellish married life surged back. And I turned around with goosebumps. Standing there was my smirking ex-husband, Steve, with a young woman clinging to his arm. Who would have thought we'd meet here? It's been a while, hasn't it? Huh? Steve's ex-wife? Nice to meet you. The young woman next to him greeted me in a high-pitched voice. My ex-husband had his arm around her. "You see, this is my current wife, Kelly. Young and cute, huh? You are nothing compared to her." Faced with such an introduction by Steve, I informed him emotionlessly. "I have some errands to run, so I will be leaving soon." Hey, is that your attitude after running into your ex-husband by chance? Can't you at least make small talk? As I remained silent, Steve looked me over from head to toe. "You're all dressed up, but what are you doing at a real estate agency? You must be looking for some rundown apartment to live in alone, huh? That's none of your business." Then Kelly noticed the bag I was carrying. "Huh? This person is carrying a super expensive bag? Steve, didn't you say your ex-wife is unemployed?" "Silly Kelly, it must be a fake. It's just a poor person's pretense." "Is that so? Oh my, how shameful." Kelly laughed joyfully, and Steve smiled at her. Seeing in disgust their faces, he turned back to me and said disdainfully, "What? Are you jealous? A poor, unemployed single woman at your age. You're living a miserable life because you couldn't serve me properly." "Serves you right." "Hey, Steve, that's too much." "But well, it's true." I was furious inside. I had to say something. Turning back to them, I asked quietly, "Hey, you, who exactly are you talking about? Huh? Just then, an executive from the real estate company approached me. "Ms. Thompson, I apologize for the wait. I understand you wanted to discuss the matter regarding the condo you own." I responded politely to the executive. "Yes, thank you for your assistance. But before we talk, may I have a moment?" I ran into an acquaintance. "Of course. I'll be waiting." Steve and Kelly watched the exchange between the executive and me with dumbfounded expressions. "What? Owns a condo?" He finally broke his silence, and I replied to him with a sigh. "Yes. I currently own several properties. And I'm here today to discuss some contracts." "Huh? Real estate? You?" As he struggled to grasp the situation, I enlightened him. "The father you ridiculed had made millions in stocks and owned several properties. I inherited all of that." "What? You kept the inheritance a secret from me? You were the one who ridiculed and abandoned my father and me, right?" Steve stammered and his face changed colors rapidly. Eventually, he began to beg. "Mandy, I'm sorry about that time. I'll break up with her, so please marry me again." "Huh? Wait a minute, Steve." Kelly looked at him with a shocked expression. As I looked down at him expressionlessly, Steve pleaded. "Actually, my company is going under, and I'm in trouble with money." "What? I didn't know about that." "Shut up. You be quiet. Mandy, please, we were once married, right?" Just as Steve was reaching out towards me, a stern voice rang out. "Please do not touch my wife." "What is this about? Who are you?" There stood Ben, my current husband, who had arrived a bit late. He put his arm around my shoulder and glared at Steve. Tall and dressed in a well-tailored suit, Ben exuded an aura of wealth. Steve shrank back and muttered. "Wife? Mandy, you remarried?" "Yes, I've been remarried for a while. To a man with better financial stability and character than you." "No way, how can that be?" Steve looked momentarily devastated, but then he started to say something outrageous. Then, "Mandy, lend me some money." "No, give me some. Just $10,000 would be fine, you're rich, right?" To him, I shouted back. "After the way you treated me, who would give you money? Don't ever show me that pathetic face again. Get out of here with that woman right now." Startled by my shouting, Steve realized he couldn't get any money from me. He then reached out to Kelly and spoke softly. "Kelly, shall we go? Don't touch me." Kelly lashed out at the crestfallen Steve. "I can't believe you kept quiet about your company going under. You were just after my father's money, weren't you?" "No, it's not like that. Believe me, I love you, Kelly. You just said you'd divorce me. Stop making a fool of me." "Fine, I'll divorce you myself. Be prepared for that. I'll contact you through a lawyer." Kelly stormed off immediately after dropping those words. Apparently, she was from a well-off family. Left behind, Steve stood in stunned silence. At that moment, I couldn't resist whispering in his ear. "Unemployed, poor, single man, serves you right." As Steve crumbled to his knees, Ben and I left the scene. I heard through the grapevine that Steve and Kelly did indeed divorce. Kelly's family owned a construction company. And her enraged parents threw Steve out penniless, who had been almost like a son-in-law. Later, Steve somehow managed to move into a rundown apartment. And now he spends his days laboring, alone and tirelessly. I will never forgive him. Even now, I don't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for him. Meanwhile, Ben and I continue to live a peaceful life. My father, who saved me from a desperate situation, and Ben, who taught me what true happiness is. I am forever grateful to them. Recently, I found out I'm pregnant. Ben is looking forward to the arrival of our child. I want to continue walking this happy path with my new family.
You're so broke you need welfare, huh? How are you doing?
At a certain party where we reunited, Howard addressed me mockingly. He doesn't know about my life after our divorce and seems to think I'm living in poverty while on welfare. But I was about to confront him with a surprising truth. Huh? Who are you confusing me with? Hearing this, Howard, unaware of my actual situation, began to scream in half madness. My name is Jenny Thompson. I am a 45-year-old housewife. My husband's name is Howard Thompson. He is a 50-year-old office worker who has now climbed the ranks to become the head of the family as a department head. Howard and I met through an arranged marriage. I had been married once when I was younger and became a widow after losing my husband early on. However, concerned about me still being young and living alone, my mother was the one who set up the arranged marriage. The prospective partner was a worker at the company where my mother worked, and given his good reputation within the company, I was persuaded to meet him, leading swiftly to our engagement. Although I was initially reluctant, I was naturally drawn to Howard's sincerity and humility, and eventually I accepted his marriage proposal.
Let's always visit your late husband's grave together on the anniversary of his death. Seeing your happy face will surely put him at ease.
I was deeply grateful to Howard for considering my feelings about my late husband. Our life together was truly happy for a while. However, it was around 6 months into our marriage when a significant turning point arrived. Dementia, you say? Having been consulted by Howard about his mother's odd behavior, I took her to a hospital in the city. Howard had work, and as a housewife, I was the only one available to accompany my mother-in-law, Susan, but the situation turned out to be worse than expected.
Moreover, it has progressed significantly. It would be dangerous for her to live alone in this condition.
Susan had been living alone and participating in weekly tennis. Recently, however, she has stopped attending, which worried her tennis friends. When they checked on her, they found her home to be very messy. She was lying down in the room, the air conditioner left running despite it being the middle of winter. Additionally, the stove was on, with a kettle heating, nearly leading to a catastrophic event. Howard had asked me to take his mother to the hospital together because something about the situation seemed off.
Dementia doesn't progress this suddenly. There must have been some symptoms before it reached this point. Weren't there any signs at all?
At that moment, a question crossed my mind. When we first had our arranged meeting, Howard had not brought his mother with him. Instead, her brother came, explaining she couldn't attend due to an important matter. Even when I visited their home to greet them, Howard was always bustling about, never letting his mother do any housework. I realized then that the reason their home had been well maintained was that Howard had been managing everything himself. I was attracted to him because he was family-oriented and took good care of his parents, but after our marriage, Howard left all the household responsibilities to me, never offering to help.
She's old, I didn't say anything, but you're still young. I'm supporting you as a housewife, so you should be able to handle the household tasks,
he told me, and I couldn't speak up about it. But if his mother had already been showing symptoms of dementia at that time, and he had been pushing himself just for that moment to hide it, was Howard a culprit by conviction, and was this whole situation part of his plan? That suspicion crossed my mind. The doctor must have suspected we were abusing Susan, which is why he worded it that way when he was asking about the signs and symptoms. It was natural to be suspected. After all, we had left his mother to live alone without proper care. I was furious at Howard for his indifference towards his parents. I couldn't just send Susan back to her home in her current state, so I decided to bring her back to our house temporarily. Fortunately, she was not aggressive or inflexible, and she easily agreed to stay at our house when I explained the situation. I couldn't take my eyes off her, nervously waiting for Howard's return while caring for her like a child. When Howard came home and saw his mother, he frowned.
Why did Mom come back with you? Didn't you send her home after the hospital?
Shocked by his atrocious attitude, I raised my voice at him. What kind of way is that to speak about your mother? She's your mother, isn't she? Aren't you worried?
I was worried, so I asked you to take her to the hospital, right? But I never asked you to bring her back with you.
I brought her back because she can't be left alone at your parents' home. Why are you complaining about that? Did you know about this already? At that moment, Howard paused as if disturbed by my questioning. However, he quickly regained his composure, hung up his suit, and continued speaking lazily.
What are you talking about? If you have something to say it clearly.
Your mother has dementia, and it seems to have progressed quite a bit. Did you know about this already? Did you hide it and marry me knowing this? Howard, probably anticipating my accusation from my earlier remarks, snorted through his nose as if it were all absurd, and went to grab a can of beer while loosening his tie. In the midst of such a serious conversation, it was unacceptable to let him drink, so I took the can of beer from his hand.
What are you doing?
What am I doing? We're talking about your family. How could you even drink alcohol in such a situation like this? Despite Howard's shouting, I didn't hesitate and raised my voice back at him when his worried mother came to check on us. What's wrong, Jenny? I heard loud voices. I'm sorry, Susan. There was just a big bug that startled me. Don't worry, I'll get rid of it right away. As I compared Howard to a big bug with a hint of sarcasm, he must have caught the metaphor. He glared at me suspiciously and sat down at the dining table with a sigh. I led Susan to the living room sofa, turned on the TV to distract her from our conversation, and tried to keep her from hearing what was being said. Finally, seeing Howard ready to face the conversation, I felt irritation rising, but managed to suppress it and sat down across from him to start discussing our next steps. Honestly, if Susan's dementia has progressed that far, we should consider placing her in a facility.
Then you handle all that paperwork. I don't have time because of work. You're free all day, right? It shouldn't be a problem for you to take care of my mother.
Are you planning to leave everything about your own mother to me? First, we need to explain everything to her, right? We have to explain the dementia to her and get her consent for the facility. We can't just force her into it without letting her know.
What? You haven't even talked to her about it yet? What have you been doing all day? You had plenty of time to explain after the hospital before I got home. You're bad at organizing. You could have at least figured that out.
I couldn't believe it. This man was so utterly hopeless. It was a moment of regret for my poor judgment. To think that someone could neglect their own mother to this extent was unimaginable. As I felt despair rather than anger at Howard's incredible nerve, he began to utter unbelievable words.
I'm busy with work. I'm leaving all my mother's care to you, so just handle it. But don't you dare deduct anything from my salary for my mother's expenses. I don't want any unnecessary expenses.
She's your own mother, isn't she? As I raised my voice at his incomprehensible words, his mother must have sensed something was wrong. Seeing her worried look peeking into the kitchen, I hurriedly reassured her with a smile. Howard must have seen this as a good opportunity. He left his mother's care to me and retreated to his room as if fleeing, locking himself in. Even when I tried to speak with Howard, he had locked the door, refusing to engage. I decided to wait until tomorrow to talk things over when he returned, but this turned out to be the beginning of a mistake. Unbelievably, Howard didn't return home for nearly a month. I tried calling him, but he had blocked my number, and when I asked about him at his company, they said he wasn't there, and they wouldn't tell me his whereabouts. At a loss, I was pondering what to do when a call came in from an unknown number. Hello? As I answered the phone, puzzled, it turned out to be Howard, with a lot of noisy sounds in the background.
I called because I have something to tell you.
It's not just you who has something to say here. Where are you right now? I have things to talk about too. Why haven't you come home? What are you thinking, leaving your mother and everything else behind? As I raised my voice, Howard sighed wearily and said something shocking in an annoyed tone.
I'm tired of your nagging. I probably won't come back to that house again, so pack up my stuff. I'll proceed with our divorce through a lawyer.
Huh? What did you just say? His words left me in disbelief, and my mind froze. I couldn't grasp the meaning of what was suddenly said, and I felt overwhelmed by darkness.
I'm divorcing you. I'm sick of you nagging all the time. That's it. So pack up my stuff. See ya.
With those words, Howard cut off the call abruptly. Later, as he had said, a lawyer came to the house to proceed with the divorce. I resisted desperately, but the lawyer spoke mechanically, saying if I didn't agree to the divorce, they would take it to mediation, and he wouldn't negotiate further. Standing on the brink of despair, my mother-in-law looked at me anxiously. Jenny, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? If you're struggling, rest. I'll make some soup for you. Even with dementia, Susan's kind words almost made me cry. It was the same when we got married. Susan, who had raised Howard alone after losing her husband early, had told me she spent a long time on her own. Looking back, I think I should have relied more on those around me. Howard is kind and considerate, so he will surely support you. So, Jenny, make sure to rely on him a lot. You shouldn't bear it all alone. Remember the person who loved you. Always keep them in your heart. They're probably watching from heaven, and seeing you happy is their greatest joy. As I watched Susan sip her tea and smile cheerfully, tears flowed freely. She must have sensed my distress and reluctance to get married. She had understood everything and accepted me with generosity, leaving me only with words of gratitude. Looking back, I think Susan was thinking of Howard as a child at that time. Now that his kindness has become superficial, that memory has faded, and only the cherished memory of her dear child pursuing his interests remains. I heard that with dementia, only past memories remain vivid, and those words seemed to confirm it. As I cared for Susan, wondering what to do next, I felt worn down by the care and as if I was reaching my limit. If I had to endure such harassment every day, perhaps it would be easier to just divorce. Fortunately, I had a secret plan to help Susan. If Howard, who was being unreliable, was going to be responsible for my beloved mother-in-law, I would be the one to take care of her. I would protect her. With that vow in my heart, I decided to divorce Howard as he wished. 5 years later, I was at a certain reception party. Dressed in a gown, I was exchanging greetings with celebrities from various fields. It was then that I caught the eye of someone approaching, who grinned upon recognizing me.
You're so broke you need welfare, huh? How are you doing?
It was Howard, accompanied by an exceptionally beautiful woman. She was his current wife, her name being Katie, and he had demanded a divorce for me to marry her. What are you doing? I spoke as if I didn't know Howard was here, but actually I knew that he was going to be here already. I knew he had brought his wife here, that he had divorced me to marry his current wife, and that he had married me so that I would take care of his mother, who's a burden to him.
I came here because I got invited. What about you? Living on welfare and still struggling, so why are you here? Dressing up in fancy clothes? Trying to look rich.
He mocked my appearance with a laugh, implying that even a donkey would look fine dressed up. I was about to deliver a line that would astonish him. Huh? Who are you confusing me with? As I scoffed at Howard's remark, the surrounding people who heard him also chuckled. Confused, Howard and his wife looked at me and around them in a flustered state until the tycoon's son, who was Howard's wife's brother, Jack, approached me and greeted me.
Thank you very much for inviting us, ma'am. Ma'am?
Howard was shocked to hear this, and his wife also widened her eyes in surprise.
What? Did you really not know that this person is the CEO of Ross Company?
Jack looked at him coldly, glaring at him. Despite attending the reception party, he couldn't believe Howard had come without knowing who the CEO was. His look seemed to pierce Howard.
I hope my brother-in-law hasn't done anything disrespectful to you, ma'am.
With a meaningful tone, Howard's expression twisted. Surely the past issues of harassment, the divorce, and the matter of his mother were rushing through his mind. I watched this, smiling amiably, and responded that there was nothing to worry about. He's your brother-in-law? I didn't know that. We've had interactions before, so it's all fine. Howard and his wife were bewildered by my reply. Surely he, being her brother, thought I was just an ex-wife and the affair partner during our marriage. They thought this fact hadn't been revealed. Howard's wife started sweating profusely, but Howard and his wife's misconception was just that, a misunderstanding. As the reception was about to start, I was introduced as the host and stepped onto the stage to discuss the secret behind my business success and why I started this company. Among various questions, Jack raised his hand, and I called on him.
I heard that there was a particular catalyst that made you manage your current company. What was that catalyst?
As the audience also seemed curious, all eyes turned to me. I told them I had something to show and began playing a shocking video on the screen.
What is this?
The video showed Howard and his wife, and the unaware audience exchanged puzzled looks, wondering what was going on. These two are the reason I've climbed to where I am today. As I said this with a fresh smile, Howard seemed to realize what was happening. In a panic, he reached out and shouted,
"Stop it!"
while trying to rush onto the stage. However, I had anticipated this and had the male staff from my company restrain him. Thanks to them, the video continued to play, and murmurs spread through the party venue.
But it worked out well, right? I managed to divorce that woman and even dumped the demented old hag. Now, I'm finally free.
I was panicked at first. Taking care of a mother-in-law with dementia? No thanks. I'd rather die. Then you came up with that bold plan. I was really scared for you.
But it was a great idea, right? I married Jenny, dumped the old hag on her, and then got a divorce. As long as we pretended not to know about my mother's dementia, there was no problem. I was honestly scared when I heard she almost started a fire, but it's no longer my problem. Whether we're related by blood or not, I don't need a burden like her.
The audience was speechless at the video of Howard and his wife, laughing heartily at such inhumane remarks. Realizing the surrounding gazes, his wife panicked and Howard slumped down in despair. But I wasn't finished yet. I climbed to where I am today thanks to my ex-husband Howard Thompson and his current wife Katie. They deceived me, dumping my mother-in-law who has dementia to me and just abandoned us. He thought I was penniless and living on welfare because he had no interest in me. But before we married, I had already saved up $900 million. If he had been interested in his wife, he would have looked into that or asked, right? What do y'all think? Howard and his wife were shocked by my words, and Howard exclaimed,
900 million?
I used to manage several companies and made tens of millions annually. Having earned enough for a lifetime, I retired early, and thanks to him, I didn't have to touch that money and lived a comfortable married life. When he met me, I was just a housewife, helping out with my family's business, so he suspected nothing. As I narrated this with a troubled laugh, the audience mocked them for their ignorance, and Howard and his wife were ridiculed. The only one silently watching all this was Jack, and Katie began begging him to do something, throwing a tantrum. But the next surprise came in an instant. This worthless ex-husband pushed everything onto me and dropped me to the lowest depths of life. But someone was there to help me. Light technician, please spotlight him. Without the spotlight that had been on me shifted unexpectedly to Jack. Seeing this, Katie was startled and frantically looked back and forth between me and her brother. This video is well shot, isn't it? It's actually a recording of their conversation. Who do you think filmed it? Then, at that moment, Katie's expression, who had thought her brother was her ally, shifted to one of utter despair. I'm sure the astute among you have realized by now. No one else around them could have filmed this. This means that this footage was taken by her brother, who has been collaborating with me. It's quite a valuable video. Upon hearing this, the color drained from Howard's face. It was clear now not only that his marriage was based on infidelity, but also that he hadn't expected me and his wife's brother to be in cahoots. As I started to explain why I had formed a cooperative relationship with him, Howard and his wife were rendered speechless. I placed my mother-in-law in a facility and started a new business to support her. During this time, I received a phone call. It was from him. He had found out about my ex-husband and his current wife's affair when they got married. This was because my ex-husband had boasted to a female colleague when he joined his company, and the story reached the president, her brother. Howard's indiscretion had led to this predicament. After learning the truth, he reached out to me out of concern. He offered to personally support my business and even became an investor. Now he's a good business partner. Why has he supported me so much? Because he too had been cheated on by his former wife and divorced as a result. As I shared this, the wife's brother clenched his fists as if to lay even his own grievances at Howard and his wife's feet. It's unforgivable to have such dishonorable people like them in my family. I'll do anything I can, so let me help you get your revenge. That was the essence of his call to me, and that's why we're here today. After laying out all the circumstances, I gave Howard and his wife a cold look, and the audience's chilly stares pierced the couple. In the entirely hostile atmosphere of the venue, Howard and his wife were clearly rattled. As I slowly approached the pair in front of the public, I delivered the final blow. I have no interest in ever associating with people like you again. I will protect my mother-in-law for the rest of my life. Please, never interfere with our family again. Staff, please escort these people out. Upon hearing this, Howard desperately reached out to me, trying to ingratiate himself as the staff moved to forcibly remove him. He resisted, but to no avail, and was dragged away struggling. Meanwhile, his wife, accompanied by female staff, quietly exited the venue. She did not resist, likely overwhelmed by the shocking revelations and the fear of her family finding out. In this way, I succeeded in settling a long-standing grudge, and my mother-in-law now lives comfortably in a facility. I make sure to visit her after work, and even though her dementia has progressed, she still remembers me, even if she forgets her own son. I want to continue watching you find happiness. Surrounded by those who likely believe my love was wrought miracles, I cherish the joy of remaining in her last memories. Besides me, Susan smiles peacefully, and I too look up at the sky, wishing for her long life. This has become our daily exchange. Since then, Howard and his wife have been disowned by their family, and Howard, having disgraced his company, was dismissed, albeit forcefully. It's natural for a company to fear losing credibility if it becomes known that someone they brought in as a son-in-law was such a person. I felt no sympathy for him, considering it was only right that he should take responsibility. Now, having lost their place, the two have fled to the countryside, struggling to survive day by day in a land where no one knows them. Though I still feel anger that hasn't been fully satisfied, seeing Susan smiling like this is enough for now. I will continue to look forward, protecting the important times with my work, love life, and family. That's how I live each day, cherishing every moment.